I want to talk with you about email, because obviously you're in it to win it. You're on it all the time. You got your own SaaS built for email and all the things. And I lean heavily email wise. I do. It's one of my favorite aspects of what we do. But one of your tweets caught my eye here recently. That's really what I'd like to touch on first. And you were relating that you had a client who leaves. Happens to everybody. Okay. But as they went out the door, there was a little soft pitch to bring somebody on your team full time in-house to go and work with them. I think this happens more often than, a lot of us think. But just give me some perspective on, man, what happened? How did that feel? How'd you deal with it? And is this common? I've seen it happen a number of times.
So most people have the situational awareness to realize, like, when you sign a contract or when you work with others, like typically in the agency world, any good agency should have a non-solicitation agreement baked into their formal contract, not usually separate, right? And sometimes they are formal and separate depending on the relationship. So I think half of it is like a mutual respect kind of thing where you wouldn't normally try and do that to someone. I think it's different when maybe it's like ecom SaaS or ecom to ecom, and someone's like, hey, my buddy works at Everlane. I want you to join this big hot new ecom startup. Like that it's more like what's the difference between headhunting and poaching, right? Where you kind of draw the line, right? So this guy basically hit up my account manager, right? And so he was like, hey man, we're taking email in-house. Love the work we did. Notice you're doing all the work. So wondering if, you guys could just, if you were interested, like let me know. And so my account manager screenshotted that and sent me that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Loyalty.
Yeah. And so, I've been in the game like 4 years. Right. And so the old Max, right, the egotistical, Buddhist following asshole in me would have like immediately fired him, refunded the half of the retainer because we're like, we're 2 weeks into the 4 week where we end, right? And told him to go fuck himself, right?
Yeah.
But instead, once the contract ends and he goes in house, I'm gonna politely say like, hey, you fucking moron, like just so you know, that was like highly inappropriate. You are zeroing in on this person who may be responsible for your email channel, but who created the systems that allowed him to perform. Who created the training that allowed him to perform, who provided him with the experience too, all baked. Like, yes, we have one guy focusing on your account, but like, what is the machine behind him that I created with blood, sweat, and tears in order to provide that performance for you, So it's just it's a lack of awareness, but here's the thing. Okay. This is the reality. In e-commerce, it is I need a fucking cowboy hat, dude.
You need a cowboy hat.
It's the wild fucking West, okay?
Get that cowboy hat on, Max. You get that thing on.
I got a fucking helmet for when I'm charging big waves. So actually, I hit the reef on this shit in my head. Thank God.
Oh my gosh!
Wow, bro,
that's serious.
Clock in. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, commerce is the Wild West. There are no rules. No one gives a fuck about a contract. No one gives a fuck about your product. They'll take it. They don't give a fuck about proprietary blends. Look at Brian Johnson right now shitting on AG1 while at the same time promoting supplement powder. It's like there are no fucking rules in this game. The only rules are the law of man. And the law of man is kill or be fucking killed. So at the end of the day, if that guy wanted to take my employee and pay him double, all the best to both of them, right? And so the corrective course of action is I tell his network and our personal friend group, because he's a mutual good friend of a good friend, like, hey, what's up with this guy? He's kind of a fucking moron. And my friend's like, yeah, actually, he's done some weird things in the past too. I'm gonna let my network know too, right? So like, the thing with me too, and how I've been able to kind of supersede this this Wild West of e-commerce is if you have a touch of professionalism, if you have a touch of like, self-awareness and responsibility, it can take you unbelievably far, right? Because you're dealing with like, a lot of like, I feel like mentally ill people and like children and like people who are incredible marketers, like truly some genius marketers. But from what I've seen, just very irresponsible people who have really low business acumen, right? And so you can kind of exploit that, right? And so for me, we just provide a good service at a fair cost. And you just got to be a homie and stand on business and rely on your principles instead of letting the dollar be your god, right?
Touch of professionalism goes a long way. It goes a long way, especially in the Wild West of the internet that we work in.
It's a crazy place, you know, like I've met the craziest people ever in person and online, you know, and that's what that is. So to be honest with you though, it's rare. I was kind of surprised that he did that. I've rarely encountered that. I've had a bunch of bigger brands I work with when I small and say, hey man, you want to work as my like director of ecom? Or like, you know, I felt like, you know, people really wanted to take me in-house from an early stage. And that was really, you know, something that would make me blush. You know, it was more of like, wow, like, thank you. I really appreciate you respecting me in that way. Yeah. But for someone to try and like poach my talent so brazenly is incredibly rude.
Rough.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Colin.
No, I was just going to say, I think a lot of people in the industry think in terms of weeks and months and not calendar years, and don't think about it as a career instead. And if you play the game with my plan is to spend my entire career in e-commerce, that completely changes how I'm operating within the environment. You know what I mean? If it's like, hey, I'm going to be in e-commerce for a cup of coffee, it totally changes your outlook on how you're going to operate within the industry. But if you're like, and I've said this multiple times, I'm going to be in here for almost forever until I hopefully retire and, you know, go on some farm somewhere and also surf in the mornings and do all the cool stuff.
In Croatia. For you.
Yeah. You think about relationships differently. You think about them in year periods instead of just week periods.
Let me ask this, Max. Something that you said while you were waxing forth so strongly, which I appreciate and love. Something you said was very interesting to me. The rates, you know, there's a lot of hubbub on the Twitter feed as of late about flat fee versus percentage of spend or revenue driven. Yeah, give me your and RevScale's take on what is appropriate, what's most fitting there. I mean, I have my views, but what's your view?
Yeah. So after this meet, by the way, I'm going to send you a clip of me talking about this 2 years ago.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right.
Tiered pricing and SaaS pricing and how predatory it is, and percent of revenue too. But that's honestly a different discussion. Right? Let's talk about like shared revenue versus fixed retainer.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so I'm going to use the example of my client, Van Man. Okay.
Yes, Van Man.
He's my first client. He's my best client. He has paid me handsomely in the past. And when we first started working together, he's like, hey, man, let's do percent of revenue. And I said, okay, just so you know, attributed revenue is inflated from open and clicks on the email channel, right? We're not talking about any of the other channels right now. We're just talking about email, where it's it's massively inflated. But it's not talking about iOS 15. It's not talking about like Apple like auto opens, right? Because of the lack of privacy, triggering that. I was just like, look, I think it makes more sense if we do a fixed retainer. Okay, you pay me a fair wage and I produce these emails and results for you and you will crush it. And he's like, nah, I want to reward you in proportion. And I was like, okay, but this may not make sense one day, right? And so those first monthly checks were $700, right? When I was in the beginning, I was charging $1,500 to $2,500 for my clients. Now we're charging up to like $15,000, right? For brands we're doing millions a month, right? And so that scaled, right? It went from $700 to $1,500 to $5,000 to like $8,000. And then I was like, Van Man, why don't we change the fixed pricing? This doesn't make sense. I don't want to lose you as a client. Let's not do this, right? Even during Black Friday, when he had outsized months, when the discounts did not make sense, he would still reward me. And I've never had bigger retainer checks than from this guy. Right.
Wow.
And he knows candidly too. It's kind of like a bonus because he has a very aggrandizing brand. Very right. And I have showed extreme loyalty to him, and he's kind of like rewarded me in that way. Right. And so I present this edge case to you guys in order to fully flesh out this point to you, because I've learned a lot through this. Right. And the understanding is this, okay? Fixed retainer versus percent of share revenue has a lot to do where the revenue generation comes from, okay? This is what a lot of people do in email, right? They'll be like, hey, we're gonna do your emails, but we're also gonna do your landing pages. And we're gonna write copy for those landing pages. And you're gonna run paid traffic to those funnels. And that combination of that landing page and email sequence results in that conversion and reduction in CAC that necessitates a percent share of revenue. And that is simply not true. Okay, that is just not true. Okay, when we even talk about attributed revenue, how much of a farce it is. It's astounding how little work has been done on the analytics platform and how damaging that has been to the reputation of email marketing and retention, right? Because if we understand the true lift of incremental revenue generation or retention or an increase in LTV or OV, maybe we're talking about a 10% lift, right? We're not talking about a retention ecosystem either with customer support and subscriptions, and VIP membership, loyalty reward programs, credit back, referral programs, all that. I'm talking about just like raw email, right? I don't think it's fair. And I think it's exploitative to charge your clients a percent of revenue because you don't actually know the net benefit that you are producing for them, right? Like people all the time, right? Or like, Max, I don't want to run a pop-up. And I'm like, fine, don't run a pop-up, but let's split test it, right? And I had one particularly data science driven client who used to work as an engineer at Google Labs, right, as a fellow, right? And then he became a partner, whatever, for this pretty cool, like a grip spray brand, right? It's called Edge Spray. And I've never seen someone more analytically driven. And it's always the people who think in first principles, like engineers and tech and all those guys who kind of come into e-com and really push the game, right? And so I kind of one of those types of guys I was working with. And so he did robust split testing with different landing pages, with pop-ups, without pop-ups. And he really was it was really hard for him to convince that a pop-up or email was having a net benefit, right? And then you get into the rabbit hole of like, the gold standard of like holdout tests, right? But like fast-growing brands, who really wants to do a holdout test? You're telling me I have 100K subscribers, 50K of them are buyers, and you want me to hold out 5 or 10K people and don't send them any fucking marketing emails at all, right?
Yeah, so, kind of tough not to do.
And so it's like, yeah. And then how are you going to measure that? Well, I'm going to measure by segment performance. Well, what segment performance measured by? Well, it's attributed still. So we can look at Shopify data, which attributes the CLTV and the AOV and all that stuff. But like, I still don't know if I send an email to that person, whether they see it. One, okay, they open, receive, and click it. But two, did it actually get them across the finish line? Right? This is what I do know. Okay. And I have changed our pricing, and I finally finalized it in the last 2 years to reflect the actual customer journey of the agency relationship. And it's this: if you scale in revenue, no matter what, there is more work, right? You need more campaigns, more flows, and more third-party app integrations and technical work, right? That means there are more labor costs on my behalf, right? And so I have to charge more because of that. Because that gets into the conversation about an optimized email foundation, right? And so if you are trusting our team to create an optimal email foundation for you, right, that scales as you scale up, right? And so there are just more requirements for us to kind of get there for you, when you do, right? And it works both ways with tiered pricing. If you go down in revenue, right? I'm about to do this for one of my biggest clients. Right, he did a couple million in November, December, and now he's doing under $1 million now for January, right? And his retainer is about to half, right? It's also a retention technique for my agency. I charge someone 12 to 15K, and then the next month I charge them 6K, and they're like, okay, wow, amazing, yeah. And so yeah, there are a couple tools of the trade there with the agency relationship stuff, but for me personally, you could argue running paid ads, generating 1 million static ads, and generating, VSLs definitely provide the performance, because one good ad as a creative strategist, and I've done creative strategy too, right? I've run my own.
Can take you off.
I've run my own drop shipping brands. I'm in the process of launching a supplement brand right now, and I've dabbled in because I've seen how popular creative strategy has become, I started doing it for a few of my clients, right? And my God, how much fucking work goes into creating something. Right? Like, you want a good ad that converts, it takes blood, sweat, and tears, and like praying to every fucking god. Like, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, right?
Not easy.
A lot of prayers.
Yeah.
Prayer.
Whereas email, it's just like you test a bunch of angles, test a bunch of campaign styles, and you're probably going to get a lift in revenue. And I think I want to quote Cody Plofker from Marketing Operators, where they had a whole argument about retention as paid, media buyers, specialists, some of the best media buyers in the world on Marketing Operators. And Cody basically had a nihilistic point of view about retention, where he couldn't prove to himself that retention had a net benefit for his brand, and it's like, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't not help it, right? Because you think about retention in terms of like an ecosystem, right? That like kind of feeds all those other channels and helps the media buy-in and informs a lot of things. But you can make an argument for sure, I think, with creative strategy. I have a few friends who make, just as much as me, or I have around 40 clients, right? And they have like 5 or 6 clients because they get a % of revenue. And honestly, I think they kind of deserve it, because you can really pinpoint the reason that
I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm as a buyer. Oh boy, I want that flat.
I'm just saying,
I want that flat fee.
I can see the argument, right? I can
see.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah. I
get
it. But
if you run the numbers, though, it's kind of like, why the fuck am I paying you $60K this month? Because this is like 800.
Which leads to churn. And I mean, I think the point you brought up earlier about dynamic pricing, meaning also going down, that probably helps with churn. But I have to say, as a buyer, I'm in the flat fee camp. I really am. Before Max gets out of here, I want him to talk more about Van Man and that restaurant. But anything else on your side you want Max to hit on before he gets out of here?
Well, I was going to ask him specifically about the restaurant, and if I know he probably can't share a lot of the actual metrics that's going on, but like, as someone being in the account, do you immediately see the lift where you're like, thank God you guys launched this restaurant. I want you to launch 4 more restaurants, because there's this huge halo effect that's now happening with the brand that's super beneficial to both yourself and also the founder of the brand as well.
So personally, I haven't really seen anything, but I'm close with Jeremy, right? Like we talk a lot. I consider him a friend. And by the way, the restaurant is freaking incredible, dude.
Man, it looks. That's what we've heard.
Like, I went with my buddy Grant, and we said like, hey, when this opens like 6 months ago, like we gotta go, right? Yeah. And the patties it's basically like a based In-N-Out. So like, but like the patties are grass fed, so it's like it's just a little bit like tastier, It's not kind of like crunchier and saltier, and there's less taste. It's more just like In-N-Out sauce. And they have like a raw milk beer tap. It's so funny.
No, they do.
It's like a beer tap, but it's like raw milk.
That's crazy.
And they have some really insane memes over the years that they have like framed, right?
Oh my gosh.
He's got memes on the wall.
And then to your point, they have like a long bar, and then they have like all their products laid out. Mm-hmm. Right.
I love that. Right.
And so Van Man is using, so his idea is, the way he explained to me is he's like, why don't we over promise and over deliver? Where we said we want to do nose to tail. We want to change food, and we want to change, personal, care forever. And how can we do that? To own every supply chain in the world. It's like this crazy Van Man vision he has, right? And so for him to make a joke and say, we should do Van Man burgers one day, it was just a meme he came up with. He sent me some ChatGPT meme he literally made of like a old school McDonald's that said Van Man, and he's like, write an email about this. And I was like, cool, Van Man burgers, right? And I was like, that was like a year or two ago. And then as a joke, he reposted, and she's like, should we open a Van Man restaurant? And people are like, yeah. He's like, cool, we're doing it. This will be cheaper to me than running ads because of all the free marketing I'm going to get from doing this, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Love it.
And the burgers are $6, and he's thinking, it's hard to quantify these metrics, Mr. Media Buyer Chris, but he is feeling like, the CAC for him is like 1, and I could see it in person. There's 8 people waiting in line for burgers. They're looking at the skincare and they're literally saying, what is this? Right. So like every new person who eats a burger is getting into the funnel. Right. So you're paying for the lease, the permit, and the food and materials and the labor. And in exchange, that is another funnel that leads down the ecosystem into buying personal care. Right. So you subsidize the cost of the restaurant. You make it as cheap as possible. You make it as popular as possible. And then people get introduced to the brand that way. Right. And that's the idea. And it's I just launched, but the milkshakes are amazing too. A2 milk. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, Van Man is going to be on the show. He's going to be on the show next week. And I think, Colin, after Van Man comes on the show, I think we eventually need to take producer Carson and we need to go to San Diego. And we need to go. We need to go to the restaurant.
I just got to watch out for the milkshakes because I'd probably take down too many of those and then I'm not fitting into these pants anymore. So I'll do the burgers, but I probably got to watch out for those milkshakes because I'm.
I've been raving about it to everyone I know, and I can't. I'm going to go back next week.
There you go.
Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me to jump on this airplane. Meet you there, Max.
I can't wait for you guys to try it.
Well, man, we love you and we love what you're doing. We appreciate you doing the Lord's work on the internet and inside of the Wild West in our space. Max, before you go, man, give everybody 30 seconds. They want to know you. They want to talk with you more. They want to work with you. Where should they go and find you?
Find me on Twitter, Max Grant __. We're better than everyone and we're more fairly priced. And I love this shit. So if anyone wants to talk about email or retention or whatever, I'm here. Holler at your boy. Chris, slot me in for the next 12 months, once a month. I want to do this show. Just send me the cows, bro.
All right, brother. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. Max Grantham, everybody. Let's give him a big round of applause. Wow, thanks for coming, man. Wow.
Thank you, boys.
Well,